My name's Rich Harrington, and welcome to this edition of Understanding Adobe Photoshop. Today, we're going to tackle tinting a photo, and there's lots of ways of doing this. You can use a standard brush with blending modes or adjustment layers. So let's explore. I've got a photo here that I like quite a bit. We've got a splash of color and these nice rich colors here in the background. What I'm finding distracting, though, is that the green is really competing for attention. So I want to simplify this photo by converting it to a sepia tone and then bringing the red back out for the flowers. Let's give it a shot. I'm going to go in and add a black and white adjustment layer and click Tint so it'll pick up that color. Now, if you want, you can actually toggle this off, click on the tint switch, and sample a color from your backdrop. Now, here it's confused because it's looking at the layer mask. So a way around that is hit cancel for a second and just select the layer, making sure that that's active, and then I click right on that adjustment layer there, and I can click Tint and go in and sample now from the image down beneath and find a brown that's closer to the one I want to preserve, and that looks pretty good. Click OK and turn that back on, and notice that the brown of the sepia tone more closely matches the brown of the original image, and I like that quite a bit. Now, this black and white adjustment layer has a mask attached to it, and we've already seen it in play. If you shift-click on that mask, like any layer mask, you could disable it, but right now it's just solid, so it's not doing much. Let's zoom in right here on the flowers and grab a brush. Now, if you find the pixel grid distracting, you could press Command-H or Control-H on a PC to hide it, and then make sure the mask is selected and grab your normal paintbrush. If you paint with black, it's going to add to the mask and essentially hide details down below. So as you see there, we can paint back in the flower, restoring its color while the rest of the image goes sepia tone. That looks nice. Come on up here and paint this in. And I'm just being careful not to get too much of the material down below. Notice there we got a tad of green, so all I have to do is switch back over to white, left bracket for a smaller brush, and we can paint that back out. Make sure you stay in normal mode, and that will let you have greater flexibility as you paint. And you could change brush size with the left and right bracket keys as you see fit. So there we go, just sort of moving through the image, looking for any flower buds I want to preserve. Brush, X to toggle, and paint it in. And you see we're essentially doing a hand tint or paint of the photo, and that works really nicely. There we go. And let's zoom out. So we can continue and select the mask there and just painting in with black where we want to add the color in. And with a little bit of work, you could see how you can quickly get that filled in. Now, if you want to, there's lots more controls. You've got all sorts of options for what you want to do. If you like to hand paint and do a very painterly look, you can do that, going over the edges as you see fit. Remember, if you get a color you don't want, just flip over to white, and you could paint back to the mask to restore. And so lots of options. You also have the ability, of course, to hand paint. So on a new empty layer, we could do things like grab a nice dark brown. Let's go for a really rich color here. That looks good. Get a nice saturation. And on this layer, I'm just going to grab my paintbrush and get a big, big brush. And I'm going to paint in the corners a little bit. There we go. Let's switch to a really soft brush and just paint. And what I'm going to do here is essentially darken the corners down a little bit manually. So I'm painting that in as I see fit. Come down here and sort of follow that edge a bit. Do the same over here. And then we could change that blending modes. For example, you can use color to do a straight remap of color, but I'm going to go ahead and go to multiply, so it just darkens it down a bit. Blur that out heavily. There we go. And lower the opacity. And now we have a nice little darkening and tinting at the edges, sort of hand burning that image. Remember, you can grab the paintbrush and paint in as you see fit on that layer, and that lets you just have more control, sort of darkening and tinting the photo by hand. For Understanding Adobe Photoshop, my name's Rich Harrington. This image needs a little bit more work, but you get the idea. It's easy to jump in and do this by hand. Just harness those adjustment layers and take advantage of blending modes and masks to get the job done.